Hello. I'm going to call this today not a pondering for the morning because although um, I had turned to this, it became something more than just a pondering for the morning. It became a leadership moment. And that's merely what I'm going to call it. It'll go out on this day, and I will try my best to make sure that all of the leadership from our church and those that have been mentored in our churches that in our church that has now gone on to ministries for themselves, I'll try my best to make sure that they are tagged on this. But it came to me strongly and I couldn't pass it by. So listen carefully from Bedside Blessings by Chuck Swindoll. But it says this: God trains his best personnel in obscurity. Men and women of God, servant leaders in the making, are first unknown, unseen, unappreciated, and unapplauded. In the relentless demands of obscurity, character is built. Strange as it may seem, those who first accept the silence of obscurity are best qualified to handle the applause of popularity. The God of peace equip you in every good thing to do his will. And that's found in Hebrews chapter 13, verses 20 and 21. God trains his best personnel in obscurity. That caught my eye, and I thought, great devotion. We're about to record for the day, but the truth is this: he trains in obscurity. Years ago, I was the editor of a college yearbook, and I remember making the announcement, having on the bulletin board back then and everything, the time that the yearbook staff picture would be taken for the yearbook. Now, picture that, play on words. The yearbook staff picture, they're the ones that put all the pictures in the yearbook. Their picture would be taken at a certain time after lunchtime, I remember. And I was the editor of the yearbook. I never had seen so many yearbook staff members the whole school year. They showed up. They were on the beautiful steps of that college. They were all in smiles and planning where they were going to stand. And I looked around me and I thought, who are these people? I don't recognize them at 2 o'clock in the morning when a deadline was due. And the faithful staff that made sure the college wasn't charged one penny more, those were the days you had a deadline. And for every day that you were late, it cost the college money. And because I was so careful with that, I'd even taken my assistant editor with me and the sponsor and his wife to Jostin's yearbook in Topeka, Kansas, so that we could really learn what was so very important and why certain things had to be done certain ways. But I had never seen so many individuals that showed up for the yearbook staff picture. Now, we went ahead and took a main yearbook staff photo, and then I called several out, which were the faithfuls. They were the ones that were there from the beginning of the year for the first staff meeting that I had. And for the first layout, we had a layout committee. Those were the days of not on computer. You had to lay those pictures out. Sorry, folks. But learn to do that as well in later years, teaching design of yearbooks and journalism. But I thought about it. Where did you all come from, and why do you seek credit for something that you have no part of? There are people that love the limelight. Have you seen that before? They love to be out front and they want everyone to think they have done it all, when indeed they only show up, in a church setting, they only show up at church times, or maybe once every 3 months or so. that they do something. There are times that happens in churches, and I am well aware that this is not just our leadership that is hearing this, but there are individuals that are in leadership across our nation that will relate to what I'm saying. God develops character in people, not by just being known of who they are. Ooh, they did this, this, and this, when they may not have done that at all. Can you imagine that? Someone taking credit for what the hardworking individual did, or spent the hours on, or stayed till the wee hours of the morning to make sure it was done just right. Have you seen that before? Have you had people there with you? I could name some people that stay with Pastor and I many, many hours. And you know what? Most of you would say, I know who those individuals are. But you may guess wrong occasionally, because sometimes we assume that certain people take care of everything when they maybe are never there. They like to play a lot, but they're never there when it comes to the nitty-gritty of the work. I am thankful for individuals that care not to be recognized, because in this devotion, this leadership devotion, it says God trains his best personnel. He trains them in obscurity, men and women of God, servant leaders in the making. They're first unknown, not to run around the day of to see if there's anything they can do so that maybe their name is mentioned. That is something that I recognize so quickly. But God understands. I thought about the other day when Sister Lynn and I were running like crazy here at the church. It was the week of graduation, and everything was ready for graduation, but someone had wanted to honor and to build a platform, and Pastor wanted to add a little more to that, and he did that. And it just, the start of the platform that he's designed began to take shape. And I just love things like that. But it took a lot of work preparing for that. And we were running around, getting things done to almost the point it was hilarious. It really, really was, because we had to get it done in a certain time. And the funny part was, we thought the individuals were coming that day, but they were coming the next day. But you know what? It was good and ready for them, and we didn't have to worry about it the next day. But I thought about how little turns in life for leadership, all of a sudden, boom, something else comes into play. And we have to say, okay, now what I thought I was going to do right now, I need to set it aside because something else has taken priority. That's leadership that recognizes that. Leadership does not continue on with, but this is my plan. Leadership pushes aside their own desires at times and their wants, and says, this must be done first. Therefore, I must take care of it. And I thought about what a beautiful job the individuals did, but how it made it easier for them because things around that area was cleared. Wasn't planned. It was a surprise. I'm grateful for surprises. I really, really am, because those are blessings many times. And I thought about how God works through leadership, but many times they're unseen. They're obscure. They don't have a name or a face to who did that, who put it all together, but they're thankful they had a part. They didn't plan on playing all day long and just go out, seeking the pleasures that make them happy. They took time off to say, there is a priority, and God can use me in this. And do you know what will happen? Those individuals will be lifted up by God. When they don't do it for themselves, they will be lifted up by God. But those that seek the attention and want everybody to think, like that yearbook staff that year at a college that wanted all of this. I wish you could have seen it. I'd never seen so many people in all of my life. Obviously, as committees and groups were, you signed up for things when you're in college. You know how that is if you've lived on campus before. And I thought about, they all signed up for, oh, we're going to be part of the yearbook staff. But they played so much that they never came when we put the yearbooks together, meaning we laid them out and we formulated a plan for the year, and we had a schedule, a calendar in front of us, and Jostin's yearbook was saying, this is your first deadline, and we had to meet that deadline. They were nowhere to be found. And somewhere in about the third quarter is when I chose to have the yearbook staff pictures taken. I'll never forget that. Maybe early part of the third quarter, so that they would be taken. And not only that, but in my eyes, the official yearbook staff, the ones that really put forth the work. And I'm sure, in spite of everything, there are a few stragglers in there that really just showed up maybe one time. Well, you know what? I think that's okay sometimes. Maybe someone had a job and they couldn't fulfill that, but they came the one time. And I think sometimes that's okay. But now, if they did nothing, that wasn't okay to me. I was a stickler for, if you're on this committee, you show up. You let me know the dates that you're available, you show up. I think it's the same way in the house of God. If you're over outreach, then you perform outreach. If you're over soul winning through Bible study and you're over just the Bible study, then you make sure you're doing that. If you're over the church cleaning, I can assure you there are those ladies that show up every single Saturday while most people are playing. That's not to make someone feel guilty. This is a leadership thing, because it says the God of peace equip you in every good thing. Equip you, because you will become equipped when you show up. You will learn how to do it. You will learn how to minister to people. You will learn how to pray with them in the altar. When there's an altar call session of how to pray with people in the altar, and not, pray for them in a different way, you'll show up because you want to learn. You want to be equipped. You want to know how to pray for people. You want to know when it's appropriate to go out and about, and not to knock on a door that tells you that you're not to do that. No religious soliciting. You will not break that signage or make fun of it or yell at. You don't do those kinds of things. If the parking lot says no soliciting, you don't break that rule and just get rid of all your handbills. That's an easy way out, to put it on somebody's, just to put something on their windshield wiper. That's not getting to know the individuals. I like what my son-in-law did with that, and my daughter on the Gulf Coast. They handed out bananas and gave a little potassium. Potassium scares my husband and I half to death right now. We want just enough and not too much. But they handed out bananas and ice cold water bottles with Hope Center on it. No doubt with their phone number, with their website, when their service time was, where it was located. They went to the farmer's market, and they get to know all of the people in the farmer's market, the people that return week after week during the summer months. I think that's a pretty good idea. I think it's an awesome idea. It may or may not bring in more people, but I tell you this, they have 2 tents set up, and as he's walking around, if you have a prayer request and you want to come, we'll pray for you. There are things to be learned in obscurity of just showing up. Being that faithful servant, not one that doesn't really show up but loves all of the claims to fame. Those people have never impressed me. Individuals that had that, it never impressed me. In fact, in our student body here at Family Christian Academy, I look for the ones that really do the work. I really, really do. I know that happens with my husband, with Sister Ashley, with Sister Lynn, and with others in this church that note things. I had a lady that spoke to me and said, I noted, the little boy that got Student of the Year, the young man, because he's going to be 11, but that got Student of the Year. He was praying with an elder in the altar on Sunday. I think that God watches for those that aren't seeking for a name. He just watches for sincerity. He watches for those who do not put others down. Have you ever been around the whisperers? I'm going to post that again, and you follow it. I will probably tag all of our leadership in that, because you need to beware of the whisperer. The whisperer will tell you who's doing what and who's not and what they think of them. But if you're not careful, you become the listener that is just as harmful, that believes the words of the whisperer. There's a danger in that. And I am going to post that again. It was a powerful message, and just maybe in the last weeks, we have read the verses in the Bible that talk about beware of the whisperer. And so we as leadership have to be cut from a different cloth. And maybe you're not cut out for that. You need to be, though, because Jesus said, "Go ye," that's a command. That's called an imperative sentence. When it begins with an action verb, it is a command with that invisible you in front of it. You go. It's invisible, but it means you. Go into all the world and teach, or go into all the world and preach. You go, not someone else. You go. And for our leadership, oh my goodness, God expects the very best. If you've been set aside, you've been given opportunity that maybe someone else was not given. But don't ever be cut of the cloth that has to be replaced. That is not a good thing. That means I didn't fulfill my duties in what I was called to do. God expects the very best of us as leadership. He expects that. And this word says, the God of peace equip you in every good thing to do his will. Pastor and I love you. I love you. As First Lady, I don't even know about that title, to be honest with you, but that's what I'm called sometimes around here. But as Sister Debbie Cantu, I love the work of God, and I will spend whatever time it takes to work here and to train up others that desire to be trained. You that are doing your best in the field you were called to and that Pastor has set aside for you, and those of you that now are pastoring churches that listen to this and that will be tagged in this, you are a special design that God has equipped. Go forth in Jesus' name.